Hello, Year 7, 8 and 9 and welcome to our second day of our inset sessions. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's session as much as I did. It was fantastic to hear from the team at Investment 2020 and hear all about the different careers that we can have in investment management. A quick reminder that every day you are going to have a workbook that you need to fill out. The questions are relating to the presenters and the presentations that you are going to hear. So today we are going to be joined by two different speakers. So you've got two sets of questions, a set of questions for speaker 1 and a set of questions for speaker 2. This is an opportunity for you to reflect on the speaker and to think about the different questions that you might have about their career. Same as yesterday, there is a Q&A function, so we would invite you, as many as possible, to write down a question that you would like to ask our presenters. Now, yesterday there were some fantastic questions that were directly for Investment 2020, and we tried to answer as many of those as possible. There were some general career questions as well that came out of that, and they were fantastic questions as well. So really good to see that you are thinking about your careers and asking such a breadth of questions. We will have an opportunity tomorrow afternoon at the end of the session where we've got a little bit more time to be able to have a look at some of those broader questions that you asked about careers. If we have any time at the end of today's session, then we can have a look at some of those questions as well. But otherwise, we'll have lots of time to ask those more general questions tomorrow. Today, we are going to start with a speaker now. I'm not going to reveal what industry or what their job title is because that's going to be part of their first session. So without further ado, I'm going to get started and I'm going to pass over in a minute to Errol, who is joining us today. Now, what you have in your Google Classroom today is if you look at the links that you've got, you have got 4 different things in your classroom. You've got the live link, so hopefully you're watching this now. You've got that one. You've got your workbook, and going live in a couple of minutes will be a guess the career. So you will have one chance and one chance only to guess that career, and it will be great to see as many as possible. And we encourage you to do that. So I'm going to give you a minute now just to make sure you can locate that so you are ready to go. So hopefully now you have got that and you are ready. We are going to be joined now by Errol, who is going to be talking us through his career. When you think you know what career he is, then you can put that into the form and you can submit that to me. So really excited. And hopefully I'm going to hand over now. Okay, and we're having a couple of little technical difficulties there. So just whilst we are waiting, I'm going to get you to start thinking about this career. So we're going to play Guess the Career, and we're going to play it with me. So give me 1 minute. I can see a couple of you are saying that you can't ask 2 questions. You should be able to ask more than 1 question, and I will check that. If not for today, you can email me directly and we can do it like that. So you can email directly if that's not quite working, and we can do it like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start for our guest speaker today, and we will see if you can guess it. Now, for this one, you will only have 1 guess. Okay, so for this one, you are only going to have 1 guess. So choose wisely when you are doing it. Okay, so you need to choose really, really wisely. Don't submit it until you are ready for your final guess. Okay, so don't submit it until you are ready for your final guess. Okay, so we are going to get going and have a look and see if you can guess this career for me. So this is Errol, who was going to be joining us and is sadly having a couple of technical difficulties, and hopefully we will get him back on the call soon enough. But in the meantime, let's see if you can start guessing what his career is. So from these clues, okay, so his job involves a lot of maths. Okay, his job involves a lot of maths. His job involves working to program deadlines. So there's a lot, his job involves working to program deadlines. And you can see here, he's got tasks: evacuate foundations, footing to DPC, drainage services, ground floor slab, walls to first floor deck, walls to walls plate, roof structure, roof covering. Those are some of his deadlines. And then we've got the deadlines going over the top as well. His job requires communication skills that are more than just verbal. So in more ways than verbal, it's good communication skills. He normally works on the construction site and in the site offices, but since the first lockdown, he's been working a mixture of at home and in the office when he's needed. He needs to collaborate with colleagues of differing disciplines to help complete his work effectively. His job requires good research and knowledge skills of concrete and steel. He uses lots of design and computer programs, so we can see a couple of those on the screen. His job involves safety and efficiency of construction to protect construction workers and save money. So his job involves increasing safety and efficiency of construction to protect construction workers and save money. He helps to create designs and instructions of buildings, tunnels, and other structures so that they can be built. So we've got on the screen some of the most iconic buildings in central London. So he helps to create designs and instructions of buildings, tunnels, and other structures so that they can be built. He's been involved in construction works on these projects. So we've got Whitechapel Tube, we've got some of the new tubes going in South East London and South West London. What do you think he does? Okay, you've got a couple of minutes now. You've had lots of clues. What do you think he does? So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, and I can see now that he's been able to join us. So send through what you think he does, and we can start looking at some of those. Can you guess the career? I can see lots coming in. So we've got lots who are saying architect, site manager, engineer, builder and designer, construction company, trading. So Errol, we've got lots of guesses at the moment. No one's quite got it spot on just yet. See a couple more coming through. So we've got working in a building firm, a computer programmer, a computer scientist, construction company, site manager, safety advisor for a building company, blue map drawer, builder and designer, engineer, architect, electrician, a building manager, and lots saying architect, lots saying engineer. What else have we got here? Any other guesses? Final guesses? We've got a construction worker, program engineer, safety instructor, designer. Any more? Final guesses? What do we think? Okay, any final guesses? We've got loads coming through now. Some more architecture, building manager, architect manager, safety advisor. So they're along the right lines, but I'm going to pass over now and you can put them out of their misery and talk through what your role is.
Hi everyone. Yeah, all your guesses were great, and they are all elements of the job I do. I am a civil engineer. I work for a company known as Morgan Sindall. I currently work in the nuclear industry, and yes, my my role involves health and safety, design, a bit of architecture, heavy engineering works, um, ad advising as the construction site. So you can say a construction site manager was really close, and I thought there was some excellent guesses there. You were all along the right lines, and thanks for having me along. I'm really sorry I couldn't present the presentation earlier. I don't know what's it's internet and the technology nowadays just wasn't linking up with my computer, and I just got in at the end. So I hope you all enjoyed, and a great job. Thanks. Pass back to you, Mr. Doyle.
Perfect, thank you. And Errol, it'd be really great to hear a little bit about your day-to-day role and what you do at the moment, so our students can get a good understanding of what sort of your role entails. So we had a little bit of the aspects of it, but maybe you could talk us through kind of what your day-to-day role looks like.
So yeah, my day-to-day involves coming onto site. I engage with the various different disciplines on the site team. So the electricians, the site managers, all of the actual the designers in the offices, the project managers who coordinate program of works, and essentially I sit in the middle of a lot of these teams of different of people who do a lot of specialist subjects, and and I just essentially help facilitate the works going on site. My day-to-day job really changes every day. It's not the same. I can be working from home for the whole time, or I can be in the office the whole time, or I can be out on site walking every day. So I get great bit of variation with my role, which I love, and yeah, I'll go from there.
Amazing. And I think some of our students really interested to know some of those big projects that you were working on. So I know that one of the slides touched on those. I don't know if you can tell us anything about those, because some of those iconic buildings and tubes that our students might be able to relate to.
Yeah, so the one of the big ones which a lot of your students might know about or have heard about is the new London Tube, which is the Crossrail line. So I was involved in the elements of design for that, and some making sure some of the tunnels were like how they joined together underground were had the right engineering understanding and elements, how to build and what sizes the sort of concrete frame structures needed to be. And then the other buildings you might have seen, which was like the large shaft as it's known, there's been a couple of TV programs on the BBC about that, called the London Super Sewer. So I don't know if anyone's seen that, which is the new sewer system that runs under London, which is hopefully going to open in the next few years. And then the one on the bottom of the slide is the decommissioning project of the Sellafield nuclear power station up in Cumbria, which is where I currently work.
Amazing, thank you. And we've already got a couple of questions coming in from our students. So I would invite you guys all now to start asking some questions, and I'll be able to pose them to Errol. So I've got the first one coming in from James, who has asked, what made you go into this industry? So what sort of drew you to it? Why did you pick this job?
Excellent question. While I was your guys' age, which was like year 7 and 8, I was helping out with Dad's building company at the time. We'd go out labouring, and we'd get to know a bit of more of the industry through that way and speak to all the different guys. But then when I was at school, I really enjoyed maths, science, engineering, technology. that sort of stuff. And when I started going through my options years, I sort of started to take a bit more interest in anything element building and maths orientated. And then from there on, I moved on to college, which I did my A levels in maths and engineering, which then led me to university in the same sort of guises, and then specialising really in the subject that brings all of those bits of my education that I really enjoyed, and to what was a likely job, which was in civil engineering. And then from there on, it doesn't mean that that's just the job you do. Like, you specialize in those different areas as you go through life. In education, you get techniques, and you really start to find out what you really enjoy. So I think you guys are moving on to options, as I understand, and I went from there was I found that the real true subjects I enjoyed, and just that love of those subjects developed into what specific areas I really enjoyed throughout my later decisions in life.
Amazing. And I've got questions are flooding in, so it's great, and keep them coming, guys. If you did answer on the form already, you can send another one, so I've changed those settings for you. And I've got one for Ava, who says, you said you work in the nuclear industry. Is that dangerous? And can you tell us anything more sort of specific about that?
I have to be careful with how specific I am, but yes, there's a lot of controls in place and procedures that you go through to make your day on site incredibly safe, and we'll go over there. However, the problem with the nuclear industry is there are always unknown risks, and it's my job to be the person who advises certain elements of work, how to manage it safely, and how to bring the entire collective of workers to the most safe conclusion, so that we don't ever have such an impact where a nuclear related issue could occur.
Amazing. Thank you. I think that was a good one. We've got from Ruby, who wants to know, how many different people do you work with, and what are your average days? What do they look like? How long do you work, sort of your working hours in this role?
Wow. Yeah, good question. So try and answer the second part of that question quickly. Average hours are around 8 hours a day, I reckon. Some days you can do much more. Some days you can actually do much less. The industry is great for being able to allow you to work within your own timescales. So if I've got a large period on a Monday of a lot of work that needs to be done, I can essentially buy back time on a Friday and leave work earlier, which is really good. And so sorry, can you repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah, so they wanted to know how many different people work on site. So how many different teams do you work with?
Oh, that really depends on the day. I can be working with anything from 25 to 150 people a day. I reckon it depends purely on the work ahead. You're constantly moving through you're not working with the same people every day. You're constantly moving around, and you have to engage with lots of disciplines. So that is really how long is a piece of string is that question? Sorry, I can't give you a specific answer on that one.
No, and I think that's great to sort of know that varies, and that it's not going to be the same every day. So every day and every project might be slightly different. The questions are flooding in, so it's great to see you guys asking so many questions. We've got an interesting one from Lewis that's just come through that says, what is the one piece of equipment that you couldn't do your job without? So is there anything you really rely on to do your job?
Yes. A laptop as a means of communication, be able to do all of my the design programs that I need to do, be able to make quick calculations that need to be done, research drawings and designs, find out specific bits of information. The laptop is the single piece of equipment I use all the time. and it's just where it's so versatile. If we was to go away from computers and such, um, there's not something that I rely on all the time. Um, I, Maybe there's certain pieces of equipment where what you can use for setting out like the areas that you're working in, which are known as total stations, which are like big measuring devices. But other than that, no, yeah, it's pure, my role is purely laptop.
Amazing. That's it. It's a really interesting one, Lewis. I liked it. So we've got a couple of questions, and these are from lots of people asking similar things about what qualifications would student need to get into a similar role, and what skills would they need?
Right. So similar role. There's so many different paths nowadays, and I would never say that university or a college is the only route. There's brilliant apprenticeship programs out there for when you're starting after 16, and you can sort of get sponsored throughout the role and your career progression up the ladder, which is really good. With my role, though, I would definitely say you do need elements of maths and science as your core understandings. It doesn't mean to say that you have to be amazing at them as well. Just an understanding of how they work, and your knowledge will grow in that area as you go through, and you'll only be working with the elements of maths and science that are really applicable to your job. So there are, if to simplify it down, there's two routes. You can either go college, university, studying the maths, science, and engineering bases, or you can go through the apprenticeship route from 16. And these apprenticeships, there's so many contracting companies, not just mine, that are out there doing them, and they're really competitive and they're excellent. And if I given a chance, I probably would have done that separate route myself.
Amazing. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There are so many different routes in. I think that's really important, guys, to bear in mind that there is routes through university, and there's also some amazing apprenticeships which can start at when you're 16 or when you are 18. So lots and lots of routes into the profession. We've got a lot of questions, Errol, about how long have you been working for the company that you're at, and how long have you been working in your specific role?
Okay, yeah. So I started with this company straight from university, which I finished around 23 after I'd done my first master's degree. But I didn't start working for them straight away. They sponsored me to do another year of university and specialize in the tunnel engineering side, and then I went to work with them the following year, and it's been just over 4.5 years now. So in total, it's been 5.5 years since uni. I'm 27.5 now, and yeah, it's been really good. It's been a really good job.
Amazing. Thank you. I think that's a strong theme going throughout. And Azari has asked if you can sort of repeat your job title again for them, just so that she's got that.
Yes. So my job title is official job title is design engineer for civil engineering works.
Amazing. Thank you. And James has asked, who inspired you? Do you have somebody who inspired you to work in this sort of field?
Maybe not in terms of work, but in early ages, when I was your age, definitely I had some really inspiring teachers. My one I go back to is Mr. Woodburn, who had a great love of maths and how that came into real life. And then when the way he used to talk about it really got me interested in engineering and those sort of things moving on, which is yourself, Mrs. Doyle, everyone, like your teachers have a great influence on how you have a perception of what is interesting and what's not. So yeah, it stems from my teachers originally. Oh, be down there. Cool.
Amazing.
Sorry, I've just got someone talking at me. 2 seconds. Yeah, you can go in. I'll just sign it. Sorry about that.
No, that's quite all right. We very much appreciate you taking your time out of your day. We got a couple more, if you're okay to just answer the couple more. One from Ava says, what do you like the most about your job, and would you recommend it?
What I love the most about my job is variation. of doing something different every day, needing to do, having a bit of autonomy, meaning that I generally don't really follow much instruction. I have to sort of create my day-to-day work tasks myself. I don't. It's down to me to show that I'm doing the right thing all the time. The other parts of my job, it's 4 hour age. It's allowed me to travel to work in different parts of the country, and potentially I can work abroad very soon when I get some further professional qualifications. So variation is definitely the key thing you put up there. But I like the type of people I work with. There's so much. There's so many different backgrounds, and yeah, I just feel it's a great industry to get into because there's always work out there. I have not stopped throughout the pandemic, so I've not been affected too much by that. And it's yeah, I'm I always feel like there's something to do in this, and it's not monotonous, and where I feel like a robot now and then.
Yeah, amazing. And I think that's really inspiring and good to know that there's always going to be a job role in that. So that's a really good one. We've got a question from Macy, which asked, what is the biggest project you've ever worked on?
Probably the one now, which is the global set. It's a bit actually no thinking about it. It's split between that Crossrail job, which was earlier on, which was I think in the realms now of 14 billion is the total project cost, and the one that I'm on now, which is Sellafield, which is 20 years long, which is in the realms of 20 billion. But whether that gets spent is a different question. So yeah, there's huge amounts of money flying about. It doesn't mean that I'm responsible for all of it at all or anything. I'm a very small faucet of these things, but yeah, there's in the construction industry, there's loads of money out there and loads of innovation and loads of techniques, and a lot of these new things that come into the industry and where the money's spent is actually by the young kids that come into the industry. They really do put a driver on. Looking at new ways of doing things because the technological advances and people from a young age have a much better tendency to sort of advise and see the opportunities that are around. So when you guys come into it, you actually don't realize how far ahead you will be if you come into this sort of industry to where you probably expect yourself to be, where you expect yourself to be as well.
Yeah, amazing. And I've got one from Brandon that says, what's the trickiest part of your job, or what do you find most challenging about your role?
People. There's only so much you can do without needing help from others or working with others. But sometimes what you get is challenges where people are not in agreement with exactly what you're putting in front of them, and it comes down to negotiation, a bit of collaboration to get to what is known as a compromise goal, where everyone works together. That teamwork element, you have no idea how important it is to get that ingrained in you while you're at school, because it's part of everyday life, and you get people who just still nowadays, even though they're working 40 years, 50 years, not in that area to work well with others. And as soon as you can sort of learn how to deal with, say, tricky people, is the best. It makes your life a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that's something that you sort of have learned a lot on the job, as well as something that you're sort of developing all the time. Errol, it's been fantastic for having you join us this afternoon. And I know you've answered so many questions. There's been a lot of thanks on the chat as well for your time. And so we really, really appreciate it. And it has been great. Is there anything you want to add to our students? Thank you from us.
Well, first of all, I'll say thanks for having me. I'm really sorry I couldn't give the presentation earlier on, and there's the little trick with that. Guys, some really great questions there. As you can see, I probably stuttered a bit and I couldn't think through. That's because I've got all this noise and people around me, as well as they're really intelligent questions, which I'm trying to find the right answers to get. Now, all I'm going to leave you with is say there is so many jobs out there, and there is so many different facets of those jobs as well that you might not realize yet, and they'll start coming apparent to you as you go through your options years, your college years, and moving on from that. But just remember, there's not one way to do everything. And I think you guys now have these amazing apprenticeship schemes, which you see here around all the time. And if you don't think that university is right for you, or educate, or staying in academia is the best way, there's so many other ways to do some really great jobs out there. So just don't be beaten down by any by where you see there's only one route. There's loads.
Amazing, thank you. And that's a really nice way to finish the session. So thank you very much, Errol, for joining us, and thanks for all our students as well.
Cheers. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Okay, guys, so that was our first session today, and I hope you enjoyed it. Some fantastic questions coming in, and it was lovely to see so many of you on the chat window and talking about that as well. So we are going to now be joined, very excitingly, by our next speakers, who are from the National Grid. So I'm going to hand over to Sam now, who is going to start this session for you. And we're very excited, Sam, to have you with us this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Ms. Doyle. I'm just going to share my screen, if that's okay.
Yeah, brilliant.
If you can just give me the thumbs up just to let me know that you can see.
Yeah, we've got it there.
Perfect. For some reason that started at the end. Awesome. Cool. So thank you so much, Ms. Doyle, and welcome Year 7 and 8. Thank you so much for joining today. I hope, although you're probably not able to enjoy the snow outside, I hope you're enjoying the view outside of your windows. It is something different from what we've had over the past few months. As Ms. Doyle said, myself and Zahir and Megan, who you're going to meet, are from an organisation called National Grid. And I think from the session that you had just before us, this could hopefully lead in quite nicely to what we're going to be doing today. So just to let you know a bit about what we're going to be doing, you're going to be hearing a bit about what the company, the firm National Grid does, how it's also linked to where you live. There is a direct link to you guys in Bexley to National Grid at the moment. And then you're going to have the really cool opportunity to meet 2 members of National Grid staff. So 2 people that work for National Grid, but also on the project that you're going to learn about and hopefully have lots of questions for. So there will be a time in about 10 to 15 minutes for you to ask our 2 guests, Zahir and Megan, some questions. So as I'm sure Ms. Doyle said, think of those questions, put them in the chat, and then we'll get to those shortly. So just a bit about National Grid. So National Grid is an energy company operating here in the UK and a bit further afield in USA. So by energy, we mean getting all that electricity and gas that we use in our homes and in businesses and in schools. So the energy we use to turn our lights on, to charge our laptops, to mobile phones, how that energy reaches us at home in order for us to do those things that we do on a daily basis. And what National Grid do is make sure that the energy that's coming in is reliable. So everyone has a reliable connection and everyone has a reliable source of energy. And what National Grid are really committed to doing is ensuring that the energy that we use in the future is clean. So you might have looked at it in science at things in a subject called renewable and non-renewable energy. And National Grid are working towards making sure that all the energy that we use is clean. So it comes from sources like the wind, solar power, and other such sources. And just to let you know, National Grid is a huge employer. So it employs lots and lots of people. So nearly over 23,000 people worldwide. And you're going to have the really cool chance to meet 2 of those today. So just a few recaps. So National Grid, it's an energy company. We want to make sure that all the energy that gets to your homes and in businesses and the school when you go back to school, hopefully soon, that the energy is reliable, it's clean, and we're a really big company with lots of employers. Ms. Doyle, is that okay? The next slide is the video. Are you okay just playing that?
Yeah, perfect. I'll pop that on for you now.
Across London, millions of people are relying on us, now more than ever, to keep the lights on and the energy flowing. Travelling 32.5 kilometres across South London, the London Power Tunnels is a new network of cable tunnels that crosses 7 London boroughs between Wimbledon and Crayford. With works now underway and due for completion in 2026, we're ensuring London has a safe, secure and reliable electricity transmission network for the future. A future that provides cleaner, fairer and more affordable energy for everyone. We're helping Londoners go about their daily lives. We're helping people connect. We're helping families. We're helping public services. We're helping education. We're helping the economy. We're rewiring London, and we can't do it without you.
So I'm just going to tell you a bit about a project that is directly impacting you guys. I very roughly drew whereabouts your school is, so down here in Bexley. At the moment, National Grid are completing a huge project. So they're completing a project across all of South London, affecting 7 boroughs, where they're building a new network of tunnels to hold all the new electricity wires and cables that will be used to rewire South London. So essentially, South London is getting rewired as we speak. So at the moment, there are some huge tunnels underground that National Grid are constructing at a huge cost. So it's costing over £1 billion to build this project, and it's going to take 6 years to complete. So a really huge project that will make sure that the energy that we use in South London is efficient and reliable and also clean. So here are just a few pictures of some of the action in the project. So you can see on this picture, someone standing in one of the huge tunnels that's below our feet in South London. And the same again, so another tunnel, and you can really see in this the size and the kind of the huge range that this tunnel has. And then these 2 images are ones from the construction sites. So you might think, why am I showing you an image from above ground if this is all happening below ground? But of course, the people that make these tunnels possible and work in them, they have to get down there somehow. So these are called shafts and entry shafts, and the staff that go down these little holes that you can see, or these big holes, sorry, and then they enter the tunnel network deep below our ground. And then just a final image of 2 people looking at the work that they've done. This is a quick recap. So the London Power Tunnels project is taking place in your area in South London. It's 32.5 kilometres long. It's costing over £1 billion. And we're just under a year into the project. So another 6 years to go to finish all these tunnels to make sure that the electricity that we have in South London is reliable and efficient and clean. So I'm now going to hand over 2 people. We have Megan. Megan is a skills and employment manager. And then we also have Zahir, who's kindly joined us as well today, who is a graduate civil engineer. So I'm just going to ask Megan and Zahir 2 quick questions, and then I'd love to hand over to you guys and to ask any questions that you might have about the energy sector or the project that they work on. So I'm going to stop sharing. And so Megan and Zahir, are you okay just sharing, firstly, what your job entails, so what you do on a day-to-day basis, and then secondly, how you got into your job? So did you go to university, for example, or did you do an apprenticeship? So I'll kick off with Zahir first and then Megan.
Okay, so my name is Zahir Bandari. I work on the LPT2 London Power Tunnels 2 project. So I'll first explain what I do on the job at the moment. So at the moment, I'm working in the design team, working on temporary works design. So currently, my manager will get me to put together design briefs, which is basically for different temporary works that will happen on the site. So if we're, for instance, building foundations for a set of cabins or site offices that are going to be used on site, I'd write the brief for how we plan on constructing those and send it off to the designer, which would either be from an external company or from ourselves internally, and then just have sort of a conversation with them and agree on a design that we can actually use on site. So that's pretty much what at the moment my day-to-day basis is. In terms of how I got into the role that I'm in, how I chose my career path, I started off obviously coming out of A levels and went to university, did a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, and then from there I was sort of considering whether I wanted to go to a contractor or a consultancy firm, and just plenty of research around sort of what it is that the company had to offer that I was going to initially work for, and just ended up here working for in the HMJV for National Grid. So yeah.
Thanks. And then Megan as well. So what you do on a daily basis and then how you got there.
Okay, hi everyone. So my job is a bit different. It's called Skills and Employment Manager. And basically what that means is working on large scale construction projects. My job is looking for ways that we can give back to the communities that are impacted by our works. So the ways that we give back is looking for education opportunities. So going into schools, talking to students, pretty much like we are today, speaking about apprenticeships, graduate routes. Then there's an employment piece, so making sure that we're offering opportunities to local people. We do a lot of work with people who might have barriers into employment, so working with a lot of charities. And then lastly, I get to organise volunteering, so quite fun. It can be arranging anything from painting a local homeless shelter to working with local food banks, so really, really varied. So day to day is quite different. And I got into my job, again, not the normal route. So when I left school, I did an apprenticeship. Unfortunately for me, I was in the year of school when the uni fees went up from £3,000 a year to £9,000. And because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, I couldn't justify it. So I did a business admin apprenticeship within a recruitment company. I worked within recruitment for around 4 years. I then did the typical 21-year-old thing and went traveling to Southeast Asia to find myself. And when I came home, decided I wanted to change industries. So I went into construction. I'd gone from working with predominantly women in really nice offices to being in a construction site with mainly kind of a male workforce. Started as an administrator and then got involved in lots of different volunteering and got put forward for a skills role. So I've been doing that for the last couple of years.
Great, thanks, Megan. Ms. Dorr, I've got a few more questions, but I'd love to hand it over maybe to the students if there are any that have come in yet to ask Zahir or Megan.
Yeah, amazing. We've got lots coming through as you guys have been talking, which is great. So Zahir, one for you is, what GCSEs did you study? So some of our students are in year 8 and 9 and starting to think about their option subjects. So are there any subjects that you would sort of really recommend if they're thinking about engineering?
Oh, it was quite some time ago, so I've forgotten what I chose. But obviously, you've got your core, which is probably, I'd say, for engineering, the most fundamental ones. So your maths and your sciences. That's pretty much when you're looking to study an engineering course at university, or if you're looking to do an apprenticeship and stuff. The core maths and sciences need to be there. Obviously, your English and stuff. All your grades have to be there or thereabouts. So my choices for GCSEs, I think, were, I chose history, which is a bit not in the right direction. I chose business studies, which is always something good, or you might have economics as a choice, which is quite good. And I chose film studies as sort of my subject that my parents didn't really want me to do, but I just said I'll pick history and business studies, and I can do film studies as well, which was quite interesting as well. So, like I said, the choices. I mean, IT is very good. If you study IT, if that's a choice, I'd definitely recommend you choosing that, because especially in today's day and age that we're in, everything is revolving around technology, around computers. Like now, you guys are very lucky that you can learn remotely like this, given the current situation. So definitely, IT is very, very good to have.
Amazing, thank you. And one for you both is, if you had to pick one thing, what is the favourite part of your job? So Megan, if we can put you on the spot and go for you, what's your number one?
So my job is really sociable, and I love to chat. So probably the best thing about my job is I get to meet new people like every day. So it's just part of my job, yeah. So I have to go around and be quite bubbly and chat to everyone. So winning.
Amazing. I think there's definitely some of our students I can think of who love a chat. So probably be up there. So here, what about you?
I'd say for me, definitely similar to Megan. I mean, there's so many people on the construction site, and there's not only one construction site. There's many that we're using. So if you are traveling to a different site, you're meeting different people, the workforce, also the engineers in the offices. But I'd say one of the big things is actually being on site and seeing the work happen in front of you. Obviously, when you're sitting behind a desk like I am currently, you're just seeing everything in theory, what's happening. But actually being on the site and looking at the works that are happening, and you're like, you see the offices up, for instance, and you're like, oh, I designed the foundations for those, or something like that. It's quite satisfying to sort of see that in front of you. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I can imagine that's really, really satisfying. Megan, one for you is there a certain place where you work, sort of where you're based, or are you changing around where you're working? Sort of, if that's if you change around your workplaces. So I don't know if they mean sort of different offices or if you're working with different companies.
Yeah, so in COVID world, I'm normally sat at a desk, but before COVID, I used to kind of be here, there, and everywhere. So my weeks would never look the same. So, for example, one day I could be in a school doing a talk. The next day I could be volunteering, getting the team together in like a homeless shelter. And then even sometimes I've done employment events with charities or even inside prisons. So my day to day is really, really different. I'm actually finding it a bit strange being behind a desk all day. But yeah, it's definitely, I would say probably behind the desk for like half the week, and then the other half I'm out there in the community. So yeah, it's a bit different.
Amazing. And I can again see that things have probably changed quite a lot in COVID times. They've asked as well, and this is for sort of both of you, about your working hours. So a typical day, what kind of hours do you work?
Should I go first to here? So in construction, we do tend to work long hours. I won't hide that from you. So I am an early bird, so I tend to get in the office for around 7:30, and then I leave about 5. But I think core working hours are around 8 till 5:30 for most office staff.
Yeah, so second to that. I think normally it's around 8 till 5:30. I'm quite the opposite, so I like to have a bit of a lie-in and leave slightly later. So I'll get in typically around 8:30ish, and then some days I'll leave at 6:30. Can be later depending on how much work you have. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some days whereby you get your work done and there's not much to do and you can leave early. It's not really just always long hours. I mean, I had an experience where I was working on site, and when you're working on site, the hours can be a lot longer. So sometimes you're in 7 till 7, for instance. And especially if you have to travel, it is quite draining, but it is satisfying as well once you actually see the work that you're doing and the impact that it's having on the industry. Trust me, it's really worth it.
Amazing, thank you. And we've got James, who is desperate to know, if you didn't do your role at the moment, what job would you pick? I don't know if you've got anything else that you sort of, if you weren't doing the role that you're doing at the moment.
As in, is that whether we're doing not engineering or just a role within engineering?
I think it could be either. I don't know have you always wanted to be an engineer, or have you?
For me, personally, I was looking at what my future. It sounds a bit boring, but I was thinking about, in the future, getting married, having kids, raising a family. You have to think realistically. I wasn't very aspirational. I don't know if that's the word, but I wasn't really thinking of what I would enjoy to do, and things like that. I was thinking about what made sense the most, and I enjoyed stuff like maths and science, especially physics. So I just studied those subjects and saw where it would take me, to be honest. But yeah, probably engineering is probably what I wanted to do and what I ended up with. So yeah, can't complain.
Amazing. And Megan, I don't know if you didn't do your role at the moment, if there's anything else that you would want to do.
I think for me, so when I was at school, I always wanted to be a teacher, but I was really, really shy at school. Like I was probably the one in the group that never spoke during like a project or something. So I was super shy. But now it's somehow that I've got into a job which kind of has a teaching element in it. But I really, really enjoy my job. It's so different and kind of so fun sometimes. Yeah, I really, really enjoy it. So probably stick with what I'm doing.
Yeah, amazing. And Megan, one for you. I know you mentioned doing a lot of work with charity, and Zainab has asked, has that something you've always enjoyed when you were sort of their age at school? Did you enjoy getting involved in charity projects?
Yeah, so the charity side of me, I've kind of always had that. So when I was 20, I gave myself a challenge that I wanted to raise £10,000 for charity by the time I'm 30. So I always have been involved in like doing charity events, like I've abseiled off a building, I've done like the London Marathon, things like that. So that's always me outside of work. And then it just so happened when I started doing my administration role in construction that I got involved in it as part of my job, and now I literally do it day to day. So yeah, it's definitely worked quite well for me.
Yeah, that's amazing, and some really impressive things there. Lots of aspirations for our students. We've got a couple more coming through, if it's okay, because I think it's really great to hear you guys sort of asking. And Annie has asked if your job as an engineer here is dangerous, or sort of the people that you work with, what are the risk elements involved?
So for me, currently being in office, not so much. The stuff we have to consider is the risk management for the people that are on site, predominantly for most of the time on the project. We've got to think of ways to make it safer for them, carrying out risk assessments for all the works that we are doing. But don't get me wrong, there is a lot of risk being on site, and fortunately today there's a lot of ways that you can prevent stuff happening. So it's important that the people that are in charge of checking on site whether things are happening safely, whether the people working on the construction sites, the workers, are being responsible in terms of the way they're doing things, doing them safely. And trust me, if everyone did everything the way it was meant to be all the time, that number would be very low in terms of the risk. So there are ways to reduce the risk. It's just about being disciplined and not trying to look for shortcuts and things like that. So bit of risk involved, but you can avoid it, definitely.
Amazing, thank you. And Megan, there's one for you, and it's who, or is there anybody that inspired you whilst you were in school? Who sort of were you, any role models you had when you were at school?
I'm probably not necessarily going to say when I was at school, but in terms of my career, there is somebody who is in a similar role to what I do now, who works in the community, and he came from being a police officer and then started working as a community person in construction, and he's just really inspired me in my job. He's always kind of put me forward and always supported me in everything I do, and I've literally learned so much from him. So you definitely, I think the working world is so bizarre. Like you could start off as an 18-year-old in the working environment and all of a sudden you become best friends with like a 40-year-old person, but they're like your mentor and they're so inspiring. I think you meet so many people like that throughout your kind of career journey. But yeah, that's probably the best one for me.
Amazing. Yeah, and I think that's really true. When you sort of get into a workplace, there's lots of different inspirations and things that kind of keep you going. We've got a couple of students who just asked if they can clarify your official job titles to both of you. So if they're looking to do a bit more research into your roles, if they can have your official job titles.
I'll go first. So for mine at the moment is a graduate civil engineer. So in general, I'll track back to when I was looking for jobs and things and university degrees. So in general, searching up engineering on all social media platforms and whatnot, looking at the projects that are occurring in the industry, and then sort of narrowing it down to civil engineering, because there's lots of different types of engineering out there, mechanical as well being one of the main ones. Then there's aeronautical as well, to do with airplanes and things like that. So there's a lot of different types of engineering, but being a graduate civil engineer, I'm sort of exposed to a lot of the different roles within the civil engineering. So it's a bit of a difficult one to search for something so specific, but I'd look at the aspects that do entail with civil engineering. So look at the sort of things you can specialize in and see what takes your fancy, to be honest, and sort of focus on that more and sort of push for that when you do get your foot in the door, and push to get towards that, be it project management or whether you want to work on surveying on the site, actually using all the instruments and things like that. So definitely search into that.
And then I guess for me, because my one is quite unique, it can go under things like skills and employment. It can go under corporate social responsibility, or there's like a new buzzword for it, which is social value. And social value is basically the value that you're giving back in society through some of the things that you're doing. And it's like a buzzword around at the moment. There's loads of new jobs that are coming out in it. And it's not just construction. A lot of the other industries have a social value element. So I think if you're going to research my role, go with the word social value and you'll find out a lot about it. That's what it comes under.
Amazing, thank you. And Sam, I don't know if there's anything that you want to sort of add at this point, or any final messages for our students. It's been great to have so many of the questions answered.
I was months later, I still can't fully do it. I'm just going to share my screen just for the last time, if that's okay, Mr. Errol, just because I just want to share hopefully something that will interest all the students on this call, and some really amazing questions. So thank you again for asking some brilliant ones. So we've had the opportunity to meet Zahir and Megan, which is amazing. If any of you want to meet any more people working on the London Power Tunnels project, so people who might be engineers, or people working to support the community, or people who are maybe looking out to ensure that the environment isn't affected by the work that's carrying out, there's an amazing opportunity on the page in front of you right now. So if you either scan that QR code or make a quick note of that link, you'll see a button that says Mentors, and then you can ask anyone a question. So if you have anything that someone has mentioned today you want to know a bit more about, or if you want to know a bit more about civil engineering, for example, or what it means to work in a community, you can ask those questions. So I'd definitely urge you, if this has kind of increased your interest in the sector, this is an amazing tool that you can use to ask people who are working in a really big company some questions. So I think that's kind of the last thing I'd like to say. And then again, just a thank you to Ms. Doyle and to the students for some really great questions.
Brilliant, and thank you so much to all of you for joining us. And it would be great to have that link as well that we can share with the students if anyone didn't manage to get it, because that is a great opportunity, guys, for you to find out some more questions. But a huge thank you from all of us for joining us this afternoon. I know the students, there have been hundreds of questions flooding in, so I think they really enjoyed the session. So really big thank you from all of us here at Bexley Academy. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was our final session for today, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Some fantastic, so lots of construction engineers, and also looking at that charitable side and the social action projects, which are amazing. And as Megan said, they go across loads of industries, so it's not just in construction. If that is something you are interested in, it's a fantastic opportunity that Sam mentioned, and I will put the link to that in the classroom so it'll be available later today if you want to find out a little bit more about that. You have 10 minutes left of today's lesson. So what I would like you to do is go into your workbook, and you've got some questions to answer about our two speakers from today. So Errol, who started with us, who was a civil design engineer, and then from the National Grid, we had Megan and Zahir, an engineer and a social action worker. So it was really great to have those speakers. It is lovely to see so many of you online, and we will see you tomorrow afternoon, starting again at 2 p.m. Thanks for a great session. Bye, guys.